the screen. Right, well, I will now call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the business meeting, which is going to be a little bit different this year from how we usually do it because not all of the prizes are presented at the business meeting. They're presented on some other occasions, but we sort of put it all together into the one meeting. When you're asked to vote on an item, we're going to do that. You'll have a little raise hand icon, and we'll use that to signal support of a motion. And yeah, for those of you who are receiving a prize, if you haven't yet emailed me how to pronounce your name and you think you'd like to, there's still time. So I will check my email immediately before the publication prizes are, well, all the prizes are to be announced. Our first agenda item is the approval of the minutes of the 94th annual meeting, which took place on March 8th, 2019, and were printed in Speculum, Volume 94, Issue 3. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Can somebody on the panel like wave their hand to signal that you're moving? Okay, second. Thank you. All right, now we will take a vote. All those in favor, please indicate by using, this is in the, yeah, okay, people are figuring this out. Right, thank you. Okay, I guess we should say hands down now, which you do by clicking again. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. The second item is the presentation of the results of the mail ballot for the 2020 election of officers. So I want to thank the nominating committee, chaired by Nicholas Watson and consisting of Robin Fleming, Catherine Saucier, Jessica Goldberg, and Sif Ricardsdottir. And I'd also like to thank everyone who stood for office, both those who were elected and those who were not. So we vote on this generally as a slate. Do I have a motion to accept the results of the mail ballot? Yep, thank you. Second? Yeah, thanks. Okay, so now I ask you to vote again through using the little hand raise symbol. Thank you, hands down. And can I ask for a show of hands, those opposed? Right, thank you. We now have the award ceremony. And so Lisa is going to share here the results of the deliberations of all our prize committees, whom I thank very much. The publication prizes for 2020. For the Van Cortlandt Elliott Prize, which is for a first article, goes to Randall Todd Pippinger, Lives Untold, the Dampierre Family, Captivity and the Crusades in 13th Century Champagne, published in the Journal of Medieval History. Congratulations. The John Nicholas Brown Prize for the best first book goes to Stephen Schoening, Bonds of Wool. Sorry, I can't see the full slide with I can't see the full slide with the little Everybody's faces on the side.
The pallium. The
pallium. No, what's after the pallium? Is it and?
And.
Yeah, okay, that's what I couldn't read. The Pallium and Papal Power in the Middle Ages, published by the Catholic University of America Press. Congratulations, Steve. The Digital Humanities and Multimedia Studies Prize goes to Virtual HMML, that's the Hill Museum and Manuscript Library, Columbus Stewart and Daniel Gullo, Principal Investigators. Congratulations. The Karen Gould Prize in Art History goes to Benjamin Anderson for, again, I can't read the end of the first line there. Is it Cosmos and Community in Early Medieval Art? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
As medievalists, we learn to interpolate, right? Cosmos and Community in Early Medieval Art, published by Yale University Press. Congratulations. And the Haskins Medal for a significant and field-changing work in the field of medieval studies goes to Richard Firth Green for Elf Queens and Holy Friars, Fairy Beliefs and the Medieval Church, University of Pennsylvania Press. Congratulations. I'm just taking one moment to see if anybody sent me an updated pronunciation of their name. Nope. All right. We then have the prizes, the Inclusivity and Diversity Travel Grants. There are two of these. The first is Terrell Campbell, St. Louis University, Celebrating Belle de Costa Green, an examination of medievalists of color within the field. And the second is Tirumular Narayanan from the University of Wisconsin, As Black as Ink, Text Image Mismatches in Les Grandes Chroniques de France. We also have graduate student speakers at this conference who have been awarded prizes. The travel bursaries for their travel to this conference, which they did not in fact undertake, but to present papers that some of them are have been or are being presented in the virtual meeting. Some of them we hope will be presented at the conference next year, and the students will be able to use their travel bursary to attend that. The prize for the best student paper goes to Christopher Halstead from the University of Virginia. Wounds Before Milk, Gender, somebody want to fill in the end of that line for me? Gender and Steppe Ethnography in Post-Carolingian Europe. Travel bursaries to Mary Gilbert, Indiana University, Bloomington. Multilingual poets explaining Old English influence in the Old Icelandic poem Fullendar Kviða. Austin Powell from Catholic University of America. In these pages, you should examine well and diligently the points which you will see I made throughout. Spiritual direction in the margins of 15th century Italian manuscripts. Joanna Murdoch, Duke University. Time and Devotional Poetics in John Lydgate's Calendarium. Eileen Morgan, University of Notre Dame. Comme c'est l'histoire vif, Peacock's
Natural
Philosophy and the Edible Art of
Altering
Nature. Thank you. Sorry, as may be happening on some of your screens, the little boxes with the panelists are covering up the very right-hand end of my screen here. Andrea Paul from University of Virginia, Prophetic Paragons in a World
of Others.
Of other words, okay. And then Amy Conwell from the Center for Medieval Studies, University of Toronto, Pathogenesis of a Posteme, the development of madness in Middle English medical texts. Congratulations to all the prize winners, the publication prizes, the Inclusivity and Diversity Travel Awards, and the student prizes. I'm really sorry that we were not able to congratulate every one of you in person, or that we were able to hear all the papers presented that the prizes were given for, but we hope to be able to hear from you on another occasion and to congratulate you in person, perhaps next year. So congratulations to everybody. Now, Lisa Fagan-Davis, Executive Director of the Medieval Academy, will present the report of the Executive Director.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Well, welcome everyone to the 95th annual meeting of the Corporation of the Medieval Academy of America, the virtual edition. I hope you are all well. I hope you're hunkered down and staying safe and doing what you need to do to keep yourselves and your loved ones and your community safe. I want to give a special thank you to Maureen Miller, Catherine O'Brien O'Keefe, my staff at the Medieval Academy, Christopher Cole and Cheryl Mullane Corby, Ruth, and the governance of the Academy for pulling together and really coming through in this moment, in this very difficult moment, as we sort of scramble to deal with the ramifications of canceling the meeting and setting up this virtual meeting. So I'm really pleased that we were able to do this, and I'm happy that you are all here. As you've just seen, the 2020 elections closed on January 2nd. I offer my congratulations to our new officers, counselors, and nominating committee members with whom I look forward to working. My thanks as well to all who stood for election. In January of this year, 12 scholars were elected to the ranks of the fellows and the corresponding fellows of the Medieval Academy, and I congratulate them on this honor. I am, however, very sorry to tell you, if you have not already heard, that newly elected corresponding fellow Richard Sharp passed away earlier this week. He will be posthumously inducted at the 2021 annual meeting. It is my fervent hope that the other new fellows will be able to join us at the 2021 meeting as well for the induction ceremony. 2019 was a year of transition for the Medieval Academy of America. After 5 years at 17 Dunster Street in Cambridge and more than 90 years in Harvard Square, the Medieval Academy administrative offices moved across the Charles River into Boston in June to 6 Beacon Street. Around the corner from the Boston Common and the Massachusetts State House, behind the historic Granary Burying Ground, and down the street from the Boston Athenaeum, this new location situates us within easy reach of all of Boston's academic, historic, and cultural institutions. If you find yourself on Beacon Hill sometime, step off the Freedom Trail and come by for a visit. We'd love to see you. After a brief period of transition last summer, the Speculum operation began a gradual transition to the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., spearheaded by our new editor, Katherine Jansen. I am so pleased to be working with Kate, and I look forward to our continued collaboration under this new model. In addition to myself, the Boston staff includes Assistant to the Executive Director, Cheryl Mullane Corby, and Communications and Membership Coordinator, Christopher Cole, as well as Associate Editor of Speculum, Taylor McCall. Dr. McCall will continue to work out of the Boston office until the middle of 2021, when the Speculum operation will fully transition to the Catholic University office in DC. As our Treasurer, Eugene Lyman, will explain in his report, cost savings incurred by the transition of the editorship out of the Boston office and a favorable lease in the new office space have relieved our structural deficit. For the first time in nearly a decade, we can present a balanced budget. The fiscal and logistical uncertainties presented by the COVID-19 outbreak, including the ramifications of canceling the annual meeting, have left our 2020 finances on more challenging ground, but we will continue to operate as routinely as possible. The office has been closed since March 8th, and the staff have all been working from home. We have cash and invested funds, plenty to continue to conduct annual business and daily business. We will continue to award grants and fellowships and pay salaries and benefits. The Medieval Academy will continue to function and support our members throughout this period of uncertainty. I am exceedingly grateful to our staff, governance, and volunteers for their efforts and their support. The work of the Academy could not be accomplished without the additional labor of our volunteer corps, more than 140 individuals serving on 27 committees. I am extremely grateful to all of you for your efforts on behalf of the Academy. I would especially like to thank Ruth Mazzo-Karras for her leadership and her hard work this year. There were unexpected complications involved in the editorial transition, and of course, she has had to deal with the ramifications of the COVID-19 outbreak and the cancellation of the annual meeting, but she has managed it all with aplomb, good humor, and diplomacy, not to mention doing it all from Dublin. It has been a pleasure working with you, Ruth. I would also like to add a special thank you to Gene Lyman, our treasurer, who in his 10 years as treasurer and more than 5 before that on the finance committee has devoted untold hours of unpaid time to securing our financial well-being. Gene, we are all in your debt. And in this, your last hours of service before your term ends, I want to personally and publicly offer you my heartfelt thanks for your guidance, patience, knowledge, and dedication. It has been a real pleasure working from you. I've learned so much from you, and I will miss you. Finally, I'm very pleased to announce that our new treasurer, as of tomorrow morning, will be Aidan Cumler. Her 5-year term will begin at the conclusion of the annual meeting, and I look forward to working with her to continue the progress we have made under Jean's stewardship. Part of the work of our volunteers includes mandated meetings, and here is the when and the where for 2019. The 2020 CARA meeting will take place tomorrow morning, tomorrow at noon Eastern Daylight Time. Details are on the virtual meeting website. We hope you'll join us for this important annual gathering of representatives of departments, programs, regional associations, and others working to promote and improve medieval studies on campus at a grassroots level. This year's mandated annual meeting of the corporation is, of course, here and now in this virtual cloud space. In 2021, we will meet at the University of Indiana in Bloomington, and you will find the call for papers on our website. Preliminary planning is underway, and the proposal was approved by the council yesterday for our 2022 meeting at the University of Virginia. In 2023, we will likely meet in Washington, D.C., in 2024 at Arizona State University, and in 2025, we will celebrate our centennial in Boston. In 2019, the Academy welcomed 406 new members. 535 members did not renew, resulting in a net loss of 129 members and a renewal rate of 77.75%, which was slightly higher than 2018. As of March 17th of this year, the Academy comprised 3,433 members, 1,010 of whom have not yet renewed for 2020. You know who you are. I know who you are, and you will be hearing from me soon because you are consumed with guilt. And right now, your membership is more important to us than ever. Supporting the work of our members through awards and fellowships is, of course, one of our primary concerns. In 2019, we awarded nearly $100,000 to 37 student, contingent, junior, and independent scholars in 9 grant-making programs. In addition to funding research grants for advanced graduate students, we sent students to summer language and paleography programs around the world, supported independent and contingent scholars as they traveled to conferences to present their work, subvented the publication of several first books, and helped fund graduate student conferences and symposia. Many of these grants are in fact funded directly from your membership dollars and your donations, and we need your help to continue this valuable work. In 2020, in spite of the COVID-19 outbreak, we will continue to work to create the diverse, equitable, inclusive, and accessible medieval academy to which we aspire. We will continue to publish, reward, support, and promote the highest level of scholarship in our field. We will continue working to improve the representation of medieval studies in K-12 curricula, partnering with the National Humanities Center and the Boston University Center for African Studies to develop and implement a tuition-free online course for K-12 educators on the subject of Africa and Africans in the Middle Ages. We will continue development of the database of medieval digital resources, restructuring the workflow to improve efficiency of the vetting and input processes. Our ad hoc committee on professional diversity has completed its work, and several proposals designed to support and advocate for medievalists working in all professional contexts were considered by the Medieval Academy Council at its meeting a few days ago. These new policies and procedures will be announced in the coming weeks. Medieval Academy volunteers and members of governance have been invited to participate in an anti-bias and anti-racist workshop at the 2020 International Congress on Medieval Studies, Kalamazoo. But as the ICMS has been canceled, that workshop has been postponed and will hopefully take place at the 2021 ICMS. Such programming will help us as we work to create an organization in which all medievalists feel welcome, heard, and respected. I look forward to collaborating with our members as we continue this important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And let me just say to everyone that this has not been the easiest year, especially not the easiest last few months, to be the executive director of a professional organization and to have to figure out what happens now if we cancel the annual meeting. But even before that, with the move and with the transition of Speculum, Lisa has led us through this admirably, and we all owe her a great deal for her leadership. Speaking of the transition of Speculum, our next report comes from Catherine Jansen, who is the new editor, well, not quite so new anymore, but is this is her first annual report as editor of Speculum. So welcome, Kate.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. And let me say before I begin that I've very much enjoyed working with you as president of the Medieval Academy of America. So Renata has big shoes to fill. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all staying safe, and I want to thank you for joining us in cyberspace for this meeting this afternoon, and I'm impressed that we have 42 participants here. It's my privilege to be here as editor of Speculum, and I am grateful to a number of people, 3 key people who made this happen. First of all, David Wallace, president of the Medieval Academy last year, Ruth Karras, president of the Medieval Academy this year, and Aaron Dominguez of CUA, who was then the dean, now the provost. They all really worked together to make it happen. My editorship, as Lisa and Ruth have already said, really marks a big change for Speculum because it's the first time, to my knowledge, that Speculum has, that the journal has been housed elsewhere than with the Medieval Academy of America in Cambridge and now Boston. And it also marks a new business model for the Medieval Academy of America, in that CUA is picking up some of the costs associated with the journal to take pressure off of the Medieval Academy budget, and you'll hear more, of course, about that from Jean. I am going to skip over the details of the transition because you can read about that in my report, which will be published in the July issue. But I do want to name some names who made the transition as easy as any transition could possibly be. So first of all, I want to thank the former staff of Speculum. We had a pretty much complete turnover in July. So the former staff is all named in my report. I'd also like to thank those in the Boston office, Chris Cole, Cheryl Mullane Corvey, and of course, Lisa Fagan-Davis, who has really supported and facilitated the many changes in the Speculum operations. And I'm extremely grateful for that. But I also want to thank Sally Spence, former editor of Speculum, editor emerita, as I've been calling her, who has been a very gracious and generous mentor. And she also made the transition to the new staff, for the new staff, as easy as possible. So I mentioned a moment ago that the Speculum staff really turned over almost completely. So I'd like to introduce you to the new staff. First of all, Taylor McCall, who Lisa's already mentioned. Taylor is our associate editor, that is the book review editor. She runs the book reviewing operation out of the Boston office. Taylor's a PhD in art history from Cambridge University. She had the good fortune of training with our former associate editor. I'll talk more about the book review operation and the challenges it faces in the age of COVID-19 near the end of my report. Second is Carol Anderson, our new part-time editorial assistant in DC. Carol is a PhD in history from CUA, and she is our fact checker, and she handles the Varia. Also in the DC office, we have an office manager who is a CUA employee, Miss Lola Lestraps, who handles all of the business coming into the office, and also handled our move and the renovation of our suite in McMahon Hall. Ann Cherry came on as copy editor on volume 95-1, and she came highly recommended from Princeton University Press. And we have a new proofreader coming aboard in the July issue. So that's the staff. We also have had a number of people rotating in and off of our boards who I'd like to call attention to. So in July, when I came aboard, the editorial positions, some of the editorial positions changed, and I'd like to mention that we had Chris Baswell, Brian Fitzgerald, Cecilia Gaposhkin, Peggy McCracken, and Jan Zilkowski, who came on for a second term. Those people who were just approved by the council for the board on Thursday are Russ Brand, Stefan Esters, and Cecily Hillsdale. So those are our new board members. But I'd like to give heartfelt thanks to those who have already rotated off and who are just about to rotate off. And that's Sarah Kay, Cecilia Trifoli, Jocelyn Wogan-Brown. And those who are just about to rotate off, Anne-Marie Weil-Carr, Susan Einbinder, and Ann Lester. Anne is the only one I can actually see here. So Anne will take my heartfelt thanks for all who have served on the editorial board. For the review board, the book review board, new to the board in July were Jonathan Berkey, Wendy Pfeffer, Lawrence Warner, and Warren Woodfin. The most recent nominations, which were just approved at the council, are Nuria Sileras Fernandez and Mary Watt. I still have one book review position pending. I'd like to thank Jennifer Ball, William Payton, John Tolan, Marion Turner, who have already rotated off the board, but now also to Allison Cornish, Steve Harvey, and Jesus Velasco as they rotate off the book review board now. Let me now turn to our relationship with our publisher, University of Chicago Press. The contract for publishing Speculum was renewed, and it runs through December 31st, 2025, so another 5 years. The Speculum staff has had a very positive experience with UCP so far. And I thank Kari Rohn and her terrific staff in Chicago for all of their help in getting us up and running. That's with the IT, production, legal, and marketing support. For our MAA members who might be tuned in for the first time to a business meeting, I want to make you aware of what benefits UCP offers to members. And I have to say, to my great shame, I didn't know this till I became editor of Speculum. So perhaps there's at least one or two of you out there that doesn't know this either. UCP allows Medieval Academy of American members to access a fully searchable archive of back issues of Speculum. That's from 1926 until today. That's number one benefit. Going back to 1926 is not always possible through your JSTOR accounts because it depends on your level of JSTOR access. But if you go in through the Medieval Academy of America website, you can go back to 1926. Also, you can get a downloadable issue of Speculum as a PDF file. But best of all, you can get the Speculum ebook for iPad, Android, and Kindle platforms. And it's really gorgeous. So I highly recommend that you go over there. And the Speculum ebook will often have things in it that our printed version doesn't have. For example, in our April issue, we've got a video that is accompanying Bisera Pentsheva's article. So obviously I can't print a video in the printed version, but you've got this wonderful video. And so there's all sorts of benefits of looking at the ebook. So, but again, you must go in through the Medieval Academy of America website. Okay, on to income. Again, you'll be able to find the full figures in the written report, but what I will say that our income, we've increased our income by 5.8% over 2018. The amount from JSTOR did decrease a little bit by 3%, but Chicago says that was true for all of its journals across the board, and there are complicated reasons why this should be so. In all, counting all of the revenue streams, we've had a 4.6% increase in revenue for Speculum. Moving on to editorial accomplishments, I'd like to point out that one of our articles from 2019 won an award from, won the Emerging Scholar Prize from CARA, and this was Alice Sullivan's The Athenite Patronage of Stephen III. And I'm also going to claim as an accomplishment that despite all of the enormous upheaval that the transition and the move engendered, all of Speculum's issues for 2019 came out on time and even early. Now that said, submissions dipped from a high in 2018 of 172 to 124 in 2019. It's conventional wisdom that submissions often drop off when there's been a change of editor. And for now, I'll assume that's what's happened. And we'll see whether our submissions tick back up again, as I'm going to assume that they will. Our acceptance rate remained low, that's 13.3%, while the average day to first decision crept up from 92 last year to 194 in 2018 to 104 this year. All told, in the 4 issues of volume 94, we published 19 articles, 306 book reviews, and 514 books in the Varia. Challenges. As I mentioned, our time to first decision has crept up. I expect that that will settle back down once everything with the Speculum operation also settles back down. There are continuing challenges with open access and Plan S, but those challenges really don't go into effect until 2021 with research funded in 2021. But Chicago has a contingency plan for that, which our publisher was calling a souped up version of the green plan. Finally, the big challenge, the big new challenge for us is the book review operation in the age of COVID-19. Our book review operation, as you've heard, is located in Boston. The office is closed. Frankly, I don't want the associate editor out on the streets. In any event, to make a very long story short, for now, we're going to ebooks temporarily, and we hope that it is only temporarily. There's more to say about that, but that's the plan in general. Finally, before I sign off, I want to say, since I am the new editor, I want to say a word on my editorial vision for the journal. My aim is to continue to broaden our horizons, that is to be as global as possible, but all the while maintaining our commitment to our traditional fields of study. I want to continue to publish works of emerging scholars side by side with seasoned researchers, and you'll see that in the April issue. I want to continue to work on inclusivity and diversity, and that means making sure that our peer reviewers, our book reviewers, our contributors, and our board members reflect that commitment. And finally, I want to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse of new fields and new methodologies, particularly the digital humanities, as these concerns arise and continue to shape our fields. So we need to be on top of them. So in conclusion, I'm privileged and honored to inherit the editorship of Speculum. And my primary mission is to ensure that it remains the flagship journal of medieval studies in North America and beyond. And I'm grateful to the staff in DC and Boston and everyone who serves on the boards, and to the peer reviewers and book reviewers who work behind the scenes, who all work toward this same goal. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Kate. And again, you've been in the position for a while, but let me give you a public welcome and thank you for taking on this really important job. We now have the report of the treasurer, Eugene Lyman, and this is Gene's last of 10 treasurer's reports.
All right, well, thank you. And Lisa, thank you for your kind words too. I'm going to begin with a sobering timeline. On December 31st, 2019, the value of the Medieval Academy's main investment account stood at $8,047,000, thanks to a return on investment of 20.3% net of fees for the year. 6 weeks later, on February 14th, after taking into account additional investment gains, which if annualized would have resulted in a 50% return on investment, and a cash withdrawal of $214,000 that I'll come back to later, the balance of our investment account stood at a healthy $7,977,000. I should note that 2 days before these figures were developed, on February 12th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average reached an historic high. Then, 4 weeks later, on March 12th, after incurring a loss of $1,554,000, reflecting a negative 19.7 return on investment since January 1st, the balance of our invested funds sank to $6,348,000. As I wrote this report, I learned that the market had declined more than 35%, erasing all of the gains that it had achieved since January 2017. Meteorologists and insurance salespeople speak of 10, 25, 50, and even 100-year storms and floods in order to place such events in contexts that highlight their magnitude. We don't know yet the scale of the N-year economic storm that we are currently experiencing, but we know already that it will exact a measurable toll on financial resources everywhere. Resources available, or not, to us collectively as an organization and as a group of individuals whose membership fees, gifts, volunteer hours, and goodwill have sustained the Medieval Academy as, quote, the rallying point for the cultivation and study of these Middle Ages, end quote, that its founding members envisaged it would become nearly 100 years ago. Given the grim dimensions of the present economic downturn, it may seem beside the point in this report to dwell on what the Finance Committee set forth to accomplish in 2019. Nevertheless, that is what I am called on to do. And rightfully so, since I believe that the committee's actions last year will be shown to have had significant influence on the Academy's financial health, even when they are scaled against the current N years economic storm. It is very important, for example, that in 2019, the Finance Committee was able to project with confidence a balanced budget for the year ahead. The construction of this budget was a culmination of a multi-year effort to eradicate the stubborn structural deficit that has been a recurring feature of Academy finances for nearly 20 years. Thanks to plans developed to move the production of speculum to a university setting, to the savings affected by the relocation of the Academy's offices, and to appropriate adjustments to employee benefits, the committee was able at last to produce a realistic and balanced budget for the Council's approval. It may be that the cancellation of our annual meeting will entail a financial loss that upsets this plan. But as of this moment, savings in other budget lines occasioned by disruptions associated with the COVID-19 pandemic may yet produce a tiny surplus at year's end. Either way, the basis for a balanced budget was established in 2019 and, going forward, should remain as an item on the Academy's list of achievable priorities. A second thread of important business conducted by the Finance Committee in 2019 followed from its decision in the fall of 2017 to move the Academy's invested funds away from a focus on active management to a lower cost indexed management approach. The move prompted by a recognition that more than 50% of active managers over the preceding decade had failed to meet industry standard benchmarks. The 20.3% return on investment that our UBS managers secured in 2019 tracks nicely with the blended benchmark index of 21.1% over the same period and serves as an important evidence to confirm the correctness of the committee's earlier decision. Having adopted a strategy that placed greater reliance on indexed management techniques, the committee pressed our UBS managers during its fall meeting for options to mitigate the effects of the downturn that would follow whenever what had been a historic bull market might come to an end. After some deliberation, the committee voted to adopt the plan of sequestering enough cash to meet our needs for 2020. Thereby seeking to avoid the necessity of withdrawal that would further reduce our investments after a possible market reversal. In hindsight, this strategy was appropriate in ways that we could not imagine at the time. Thanks to the committee's action, our current available cash should cover the amount we would otherwise be required to withdraw from our depleted invested funds to meet current expenses. And as a result, the resources we have lost owing to the present market downturn will not be further depleted by withdrawals made to meet expenses during the year. In the time that remains, I'll take opportunity to note what I take to be two uncertainties that may have bearing on the Academy's financial health in coming months. In addition to investment income, which accounts for 41% of this year's budgeted revenue, our chief sources of annual revenue are, one, the income generated by the publication of speculum, which comprises 21% of our budgeted revenue, and two, the income from the receipt of membership dues, which totals 27% of funds that we have budgeted to meet the year's operating expenses. Thanks to the action of sequestering a year's worth of income of invested funds that I've just described, the availability of an amount equal to the permitted 4.5% draw on our investments is assured. The availability of speculum-related income is likewise assured thanks to the Academy's multi-year contract with its publisher. Unlike either of the foregoing sources of income, our receipt of the 27% of budgeted revenue that we hope to secure from membership dues, amounting to $225,000, may be less certain owing to the negative impacts of the global pandemic on our members' individual financial pictures. At the very least, this possibility urges that special attention be paid to securing the Academy's memberships in the months ahead. And we've just heard from Lisa. Her eyes are on those who haven't yet paid up. A second near-term uncertainty facing the Academy's resources in 2020 revolves about risks associated with the taking on of new business that will very likely be during a period that will very likely be uncertain for economic recovery. The list of our current expenses, as the Finance Committee knows from its ongoing battle with a structural deficit, is for the most part not amenable to reduction. Under these circumstances, any added draw on the finances of the Academy's finances must be weighed carefully for its impact on our ability to continue with programs and activities that are already in place. I'll close my last report as the Academy's treasurer by offering heartfelt thanks to the staff members, especially to our executive director, Lisa Fagan Davis, to the officers and council members whom I have come to know, and finally, to members of the Finance Committee, whose dedication and sound judgment I have witnessed at every turn during the course of the past decade. John Contrini, Mark Kerwin, Felice Lifshitz, Catherine Rayerson, William Stoneman, Daniel Weiss, Grover Zinn, and Aidan Kumler, who will be my successor as treasurer. It has been a high honor for me to serve the Medieval Academy for the past 15 years. Best wishes to you all.
Thank you, Gene, and thank you so much for all the, I never realized, until I became an officer of the Academy and got to see how much Gene does. I didn't realize what this job takes, and Gene has really given it so much. And all of us as members of the Academy owe him a huge debt of gratitude. And so just thank you, Gene. The next report comes from the chair of CARA, the Committee on Centers and Regional Associations. So I call on Ann Lester to present this report and to announce the CARA Awards.
Great, thank you, Ruth. Well, this year, as I wrote my annual report in the midst of the COVID-19 global pandemic, with our 2020 annual meeting canceled or presented virtually, I felt ever more disconnected from a community I value, the MAA and CARA, and yet more connected than ever to the rhythms and challenges of the global community. Indeed, for well over 2 decades, scholars of the medieval world, like those in many different fields, have worked to keep pace with the broadening of our horizons as new research and teaching aims pushed us to ask new questions about globalization, global history, and the global Middle Ages. As a result, many of CARA's affiliate programs and centers have fostered communities that continue to grow broader and more circumspect in their purposes, aims, and concerns. At this moment, our ability to remain connected feels more vital than ever, and our need for better and more useful online tools and resources is keenly felt and will no doubt yield new innovations. It's with these needs and desires in mind that I feel especially proud to report on last year's work of the CARA Committee. Last year, in part to dovetail with the MAA's designated theme, CARA's annual meeting held on the 10th of March convened around the topic, Taking Up the Global Challenge, expanding the purview of medieval studies, questions, solutions, and innovations. We learned from a panel of colleagues about how to extend our teaching, programming, and thinking far beyond the traditional bounds of Europe and outside the walls of our classrooms. Last year's speakers addressed how they implemented changes in programming and structuring their centers and curricula to become more global in vision and scope. And to this end, we heard from Sarah McNamara, who spoke from her own experiences recasting the program, the medieval program at Georgetown, to take up a globalized orientation. Likewise, Aphrodisia McCannon presented on making the global Middle Ages tangible through the arts and highlighted how to teach medieval texts through a globalized frame, provoking new questions and reorienting students' readings in powerful ways. And in a joint presentation, Object Learning in and Out of the Classroom, Elena Gertzman and Sonia Mace explained their wildly successful collaboration that brought students at Case Western into the museum context to understand the global resonances among objects, images, and texts. And finally, Brian Keane from the Getty Museum spoke to us about a global Middle Ages and contemporary medievalisms, and the sorts of presentation tools and resonant aesthetics that are open to scholars, students, and the public alike to understand connections across time and space during our period. All four presentations offered much to consider for classroom teaching and for broader programming, and were much acclaimed. In addition to the CARA meeting, though, the committee also sponsored its annual plenary session at the MAA entitled Working in the Middle, Writing the Global Medieval Textbook, in which several authors of a collaborative global medieval textbook spoke about the structure of such an endeavor, the process of working collaboratively, and the place of the global Middle Ages within current curricula at the college and university level. CARA programming continued apace, though, throughout the 2019 year, and in May, CARA sponsored a panel discussion at the Medieval Congress in Kalamazoo, focused on teaching a diverse and inclusive Middle Ages, which included papers that addressed the challenges and rewards of teaching at tribal colleges and historically Black colleges and universities. The papers, comments, and discussions reflected CARA's mission to continue to open our field to new practices of pedagogy and to make the Middle Ages accessible to all students and teachers alike. And once again, on the Friday afternoon of Kalamazoo, CARA hosted a lively and successful luncheon to welcome its affiliates. Throughout the year and behind the scenes, various subcommittees within CARA met to award the many annual awards and grants that the CARA committee oversees. And we were delighted to recognize last year Sonia Drimmer and Elizabeth Sears with the CARA Award for Excellence in Teaching, and to give the Robert Kendrick CARA Award for Outstanding Service to Medieval Studies to Carol Symes for her role in founding, editing, and shaping the field with the new journal, The Medieval Globe, among her many other contributions to medieval studies. Likewise, the annual MAA CARA Conference Grant for Regional Associations and Programs in 2019 was awarded to the Texas Medieval Association's annual conference, which will focus on medieval STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, a conference that will perhaps, hopefully, take place this October in 2020. In addition, CARA awarded 7 scholarships to outstanding graduate students, which Lisa has already put up, to cover the costs of tuition for summer language study or manuscript training in 2019. All information about the CARA Awards and the nominating process is available through the MAA website. Additionally, in a further attempt to bring CARA more formally under the administrative umbrella of the MAA, the committee also compiled the first ever CARA bylaws that were presented to and received the MAA Council's approval just recently at the March 2020 meeting. This is an important and valuable step for CARA and will better serve its mission to the MAA and its affiliates. This year too, Sarah Davis Secord rotated off of the CARA committee and concluded her final year of conference programming. We're very grateful to Sarah for her outstanding service. And we're happy to welcome to the committee both Fiona Griffiths and Renee Trilling. And Renee will take over in the position of Director of Conference Programming for CARA through 2023. Now, more than ever, our lines of communication must remain open, and we must be alive to innovation, to new ideas, and to shifting and adapting to changes and challenges placed before us. CARA is committed to being at the forefront of this process, and will continue to work with the MAA, with teams, and with other organizations to respond to the needs of its affiliates, connecting us virtually, streaming our content whenever possible, and planning for what may come. In the months ahead, as we're called upon to do more of our teaching, writing, communicating, and research online, medievalists must come together and support our endeavors and create a sense of community in other forms when we cannot do so in person. In closing, I want to, as other people have done, recognize the tremendous efforts that the programming committee at Berkeley put into this year's planned conference, and even more astounding, to adjusting with such grace to the fact that the conference could not go forward as hoped. The creativity and resilience of that committee and of the MAA conveners in California are an inspiration. I deeply regret that we couldn't recognize this year's CARA Prize winners in person, and that we couldn't have the kinds of conversations that we would were we together. But I remain hopeful that much good still will come out of these present challenges, and we'll find creative and inspired ways to work together. But I am delighted in this virtual moment to present the CARA Awards and at least have those go out into the world in this way. Give me one moment while I call those up. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Lisa. So this year CARA is again very pleased to recognize two scholars for excellence in teaching, Sean Field and Frank Clausen. And I just want to say a few words about both of them. At the University of Vermont, Sean Field has had a profound impact through his leadership of medieval studies, through his teaching, and through the mentorship of students who go on to become excellent medievalists. Professor Field teaches in the Department of History, and in addition to his prodigious research and scholarly output, he has become a vital node in New England's medieval studies network, and especially in teaching and advising students. During his time at UVM, Sean founded and now oversees the annual Vermont Medieval Summit. He has invited a long line of distinguished international scholars to campus and has promoted the loan of medieval manuscripts for student training and colloquia. As his students and colleagues attest, Professor Field is also a rigorous, compassionate, and innovative teacher who offers a wild array of courses that exemplify a stunning breadth of methodologies, ranging in topics from medieval heresy to love, sex, and marriage, and the Inquisition. But Professor Field also prepares his students beyond the content of his classes, teaching them, as one student raved, how to write, how to research, how to defend one's ideas, how to manage time, and how to strive and thrive within academia and the broader world. Sean combines intellectual seriousness with a subtle but beloved humor and a gift for spurring conversation. His dedicated mentorship of students also extends long after graduation, and he has remained a vital resource even as students go off to other programs or begin new pursuits. As his colleagues note, part of what makes Sean such an outstanding teacher is his rare gift for listening. Indeed, he has a manner of listening to questions and inspiring reflection, and then fostering dialogue that provokes each student to make it a point of honor to give their best. Surely this is what we all hope for when we teach. Congratulations, Sean, on inspiring so many students and maintaining the excellence of our field. Frank Clausen teaches in the Department of History at the University of Saskatchewan, Canada, where he serves as director of the Classical, Medieval, and Renaissance Studies program for the past 17 years, Frank has been an exemplary and inspiring, sorry, Lisa, I'm watching your slides change here, but exemplary and inspiring teacher, and is acclaimed for his innovative and creative approaches, especially through his use of games and public exhibits, but also through his mentorship of graduate students and his support for meaningful undergraduate inquiry. He finds myriad ways to integrate his own research on late medieval magic into his teaching. And in 2018, he developed the Renaissance marriage game, which simulated marriage negotiations in pre-modern Italy. In 2019, for example, he created a card game called Virtus about medieval masculinity. In his upper division and graduate courses, Professor Claassen often hands out weekly curated texts containing primary sources that he's translated, transcribed, and collected for his students' benefit. He likewise integrates paleography training into his courses, giving students a profound sense of accomplishment and purpose through their practical engagement. Frank is one of those teachers whose laid-back style makes what he does seem magically effortless, yet the results are rigorous and effective. Enthusiastic about employing non-traditional methods, Professor Claassen has inspired and educated a generation of students and aspiring medievalists, and cultivated an enduring love for medieval studies. As one student wrote, whether in person, at the head of a classroom, or through his writing, Frank Claassen is truly an inspirational and dedicated teacher who balances an unyielding demand for excellence with his compassion and sense of play. Congratulations, Frank. This is an honor well deserved. We can take a moment. Right. I'm also happy, and the CARA committee is indeed delighted this year to honor two individuals with the CARA Kindred Service Award, Jean Lyman and Deborah Delianis, for their outstanding service to medieval studies. We've heard from Jean and we've all benefited, and indeed from his great knowledge, and indeed, as many of you know, certainly Jean Lyman has served on the Medieval Academy's Finance Committee for 15 years and been the MAA Treasurer for the next 5, that is since 2010. In both capacities, Jean has worked tirelessly, carefully, and thoughtfully to advance the mission of the MAA, doing so in a crucial but often behind the scenes role. He has led the way through many of the MAA's transitions over the past decade and a half. He helped to keep our finances sound and very much afloat in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis and in other moments of economic strain that the Academy has had to weather. Although Jean is stepping down this year, we may indeed call again on his expertise to navigate through this new set of challenges that we find ourselves in 2020. Jean has truly provided us with leadership in developing, organizing, promoting, and sponsoring medieval studies, and we're delighted to recognize all that he has done with this award. Thank you, Jean. The second award this year recognizes Deborah Delianis, who is Professor of History at Indiana University. Professor Delianis is a distinguished scholar of early medieval Italy who has achieved, as her letter writer wrote, a professional hat trick as the author of a translation, critical edition, and scholarly monograph. In addition, she's edited 4 books of essays, and her research has made a profound impact in our field. Yet beyond her scholarly contributions, it is her tireless commitment to our community of scholars through her role as the driving force behind the online review organ, the Medieval Review. Since 1996, Deborah has been the primary editor and coordinator of this vital review publication. Medievalists of every discipline know TMR from the hundreds of reviews it publishes online every year, made available to over 6,000 subscribers around the globe, making TMR the most widely read and thus one of the most influential review journals for medieval studies. Indeed, TMR led the way in online publishing and digital archiving and has been at the forefront of that process ever since. As the executive editor, Professor Delianis oversees the fundamental workings of the journal, from the reception of books to their distribution to reviewers, to the dissemination of reviews to subscribers. And for the past 25 years, she has managed editors, authors, reviewers, commentators, all with grace, circumspection, and vision. And she's performed all of this labor without pay or a reduction in her teaching load. She has truly served medieval studies in an outstanding capacity, connecting medievalists, enriching our scholarly exchange, and deepening our understanding of the medieval world. We thank you, Professor Delianis, for your outstanding service. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, for the report, and congratulations to all these prize winners. I should have mentioned before when I announced the publication prizes. Usually the publication prizes are announced in a separate session, and the chairs of the award committees for each prize read a citation similar to what Anne has read here for the winners of the CARA Awards. These citations will be published in Speculum, so you will be able to see them. And sorry that we are not able to read them out at this meeting. We now have the report of Jillian Berkey, who's the chair of the Graduate Student Committee of the Medieval Academy. So Jill.
Thank you. The Graduate Student Committee is pleased to report to the Council on our progress over the last year, as well as our goals for the future. The Graduate Student Committee Mentorship Program connects graduate students with established scholars based on research and professional interests and needs at the annual meeting, the ICMS or Kalamazoo, and the IMC at Leeds. Participants are then invited to complete an anonymous online survey following each conference. At the 2019 annual meeting in Philadelphia, we connected 17 graduate students with 24 mentors, a large increase from 2018. Because of this breakdown, many students had the opportunity to connect with 2 mentors, resulting in 15 matches compared with only 5 in 2018. Pairings decreased slightly for Kalamazoo this year, with 55 matches made in 2018 and 44 in 2019. 44 in 2019. We saw growth at Leeds, 38 matches in 2018 and 58 in 2019. In total, we made 117 matches in 2019, an increase of 19 matches from 2018. We also made 3 matches between graduate students and librarians and museum scholars, a new aspect of the mentorship program. Despite the current global pandemic, the program will continue regardless of the statuses of upcoming conferences. We are encouraging mentors and mentees to connect digitally with the hope of meeting in person at future conferences. GSC members Theodore Chellis of Pennsylvania State University and Austin Thomas Powell, the Catholic University of America, organized the program in 2018-2019. In 2019-2020, Julia King at the University of Bergen succeeded Theodore. 2019 was the first year of our reformatted newsletter as an HTML e-news. Each newsletter begins with a brief message from the chair recapping GSC programming at recent conferences, promoting events at future conferences, and seeking submissions about the medievalist graduate student experience from our readers. It provides any timely announcements, such as calls for new members, and reassurance that the GSC is continuing to operate throughout the current pandemic. The newsletter also provides conference spotlights that give more detail about our sponsored conference panels for those who could not attend. We have started including short pieces by medievalist graduate students about a variety of topics, including conference tips, teaching experiences, etc. We are continually seeking submissions for these types of pieces. It also includes upcoming deadlines and announcements. GSC members Emerson Richards of Indiana University Bloomington and Natalie Whitaker of St. Louis University organized and edited the newsletter in 2018-2019. In 2019-2020, Christine Elizabeth Bachman of the University of Delaware succeeded Emerson. Through the GSC's Twitter and Facebook accounts, the GSC shares calls for papers, funding opportunities, workshops, and MAA announcements. We also interact with other medieval organizations who seek us out to help publicize their events. Our digital reach continues to grow. Our Twitter following has increased from 1,066 to 1,175 followers, and Facebook from 1,797 to 1,902. In 2018-2019, Courtney Krolikowski of McGill University and myself, Jillian Berkey from the University of Colorado Boulder, ran the GSC's Twitter and Facebook accounts respectively. Jacob Westbrook Doss at the University of Texas at Austin succeeded Courtney in 2019-2020. The GSC hosted a roundtable at the Medieval Academy's annual meeting in 2019 entitled "Handling Issues of Inclusivity and Respect in the Medieval Studies Classroom as an Ally: Classes We Teach, Classes We Take," that was informally paired with the panel Medievalists of Color, Graduate Students, and Race: Classes We Teach, Classes We Take, organized by the MAA Inclusivity and Diversity Committee. Speakers included Peter Baker of the University of Virginia, Melissa Hyde at the University of Texas, Austin, Rebecca Hill from the University of California, Los Angeles, Tirumular Drew Narayanan, then of California State University, now of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Lila K. Noreko, University of Washington, and Carl Steele of Brooklyn College and the Graduate Center CUNY. Panelists discussed how we as graduate students can teach more inclusively. They also shared their own experiences and challenges as students and instructors striving to create more equitable learning environments for themselves and their students. Former GSC Chair Theodore Chelis organized the session and moderated with Nahir I. Otaño Gracia, then of Beloit College, now of the University of New Mexico. We also hosted a graduate student reception at City Tap House following the session. Approximately 25 graduate students attended. Also at the annual meeting in 2019, with the Inclusivity and Diversity Committee, the GSC hosted an event that we called a mentorship and morning coffee reception. This new event at the annual meeting allowed graduate students and more established faculty to mingle and interact less formally than assigned matches through the mentorship program. Over coffee, donuts, and fruit, graduate students and professors chatted about a variety of topics, including research, teaching, and the job market. Approximately 50 people attended. The GSC and the IDC plan to make this an annual reception at future annual meetings. At Kalamazoo, Courtney Krolakowski organized and presided over our roundtable entitled Stepping into the Profession, Tips on Navigating a Variety of Career Paths for Medievalist Graduate Students and Early Career Scholars, co-sponsored with the Arizona Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies. This panel featured Laura Wilson of Fordham University, Susan Dudash of Arizona State University, and Laura K. Moriale, independent scholar. They spoke about a variety of possibilities for medievalists once they finish their degrees and how to determine what will work best for them. Courtney Krolakowski live tweeted the session. Our reception followed the panel and had approximately 25 people in attendance. The GSC also held its annual business meeting at Kalamazoo with current, incoming, and outgoing committee members. At Leeds 2019, Austin Thomas Powell planned and moderated How to Sell Your Postgraduate Degree in Medieval Studies Outside the Tenure-Track Job Market, a roundtable discussion. Sam Lehman of Memorial University of Newfoundland, Laura K. Moriale, independent scholar, and Jimmy Richardson of the UK Civil Service London reminded attendees that their skills as medievalists are valued beyond academia and offered advice for finding non-professorial jobs. I live tweeted the session. Our informal reception took place at the university's old bar and happened to coincide with the Women's World Cup semifinal between England and the United States. Approximately 20 people attended through the GSC, although there were many others in attendance besides that, and all enjoyed a lively evening of sports and camaraderie. The GSC also sponsors a grant for innovation in community building and professionalization. This grant is designed to support and connect graduate students through innovative projects and gatherings. The grant was awarded to the 2020 Vagantes Conference on Medieval Studies and District Medievalists for a 3-part symposium for graduate students of the Middle Ages in and around Washington, D.C. Now in its second year, the MAA2020 travel bursaries are designed to help students attend the annual meeting who are not presenting. The recipients for the 2019 annual meeting were myself and Amanda Racine of Fordham University. Each winner received $300 to put towards their travel and accommodation costs. We have a few initiatives that we are looking forward to in the future. The GSC has revived an online housing forum through the Medieval Academy website, designed to help graduate students and early career scholars find affordable accommodation and roommates for major conferences. We hope that the forum will help make attendance at these costly events more financially feasible. The GSC is also currently discussing possibilities for creating an ongoing online resource for graduate students to foster inclusive teaching. Our goal is that the resource would help graduate students better incorporate underrepresented medieval topics into their courses, teach charged topics, and meet the needs of their students. Jacob Westbrook Doss will head this project in 2020-2021. It has been a privilege and a joy working on behalf of the Medieval Academy of America and its graduate student members. We have achieved many of our goals this year, and with the support of the council, look forward to expanding further and incorporating new initiatives. I respectfully submit this report on behalf of the Graduate Student Committee, comprised of Christine Elizabeth Bachman of the University of Delaware, Jacob Westbrook Doss of the University of Texas at Austin, Julia King, University of Bergen, Austin Thomas Powell, the Catholic University of America, and Natalie Whitaker of St. Louis University. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And we have now one last report, which is the report of the delegate to the American Council of Learned Societies. The Medieval Academy's delegate is Patrick Geary, who is unable to participate in this meeting. So Lisa Fagan-Davis will present his report.
Thank you, Ruth. I will be reading a somewhat reduced version of Professor Geary's full report, which will be published in its entirety in the July issue of Speculum, where you will also be able to read all of these reports in their entirety. The major business of the 100th meeting of the ACLS in New York was the transition of the presidency from Pauline Yu, who has been the director for the past 16 years, to her successor, Joy Connolly, who succeeded her as the 12th leader of the ACLS on July 1st, 2019. In her final address, Pauline Yu, a distinguished scholar of Chinese literature, described the Confucian tradition as applicable to the humanities and the ACLS in particular in two essential ways. First, like poetry, the humanities and the ACLS provide the opportunity to fill in the missing parts. The humanities do not present all the answers to the fundamental questions of human existence, but through an active and imaginative hermeneutics, they provide the ability and the opportunity to fill in what is missing. Second, and in these difficult times, perhaps most importantly, she reminded the delegates that in the classical Chinese tradition, thought and action were inseparable. Every competent bureaucrat had to be a poet. The work of the humanities is about deep scholarly engagement, but humanists must not retreat from the levers of power and must not undervalue the need to manage our organizational structures. Yu's successor, Joy Connolly's career is very much that of a humanist manager and executive. She is first and foremost a classicist. Defending the usefulness of the classical tradition of thought and scholarship today is not dissimilar to the challenges of defending medieval studies. Both fields are alternatively praised or attacked as bastions of white male privilege. This is true in the authors of the text transmitted from these distant periods, in the profile of classicists and medievalists in universities here and abroad, and in the long tradition of the manipulation of both periods by xenophobes, racists, and imperialists. Connolly herself was in the thick of such a confrontation at the annual meeting of the Society for Classical Studies last year during a session on the future of classics that degenerated into an ugly confrontation on race and Western civilization that made national news. In a dialogue with Pauline Yu, Connolly, drawing on her experience as a classicist and administrator at CUNY, argued forcefully that we must invite an increasingly diverse community into graduate education. We cannot stick to traditional assumptions about background and training. If we limit entryway into our fields, we have a problem. We need to learn from journalists and others, but also need to teach foundational skills to people who come late or ill-prepared for scholarship. Professor Geary reports that he left the exchange believing that Joy Connolly combines the Confucian qualities of deep thought and concerted action that the ACLS will need in the next decade. Action within the organization has been very much the theme of the various committees of the ACLS in the past year. Its volunteers reviewed some 3,500 applications in 14 fellowship programs, awarding a total of $25 million. Within the main ACLS competitions, the ACLS Mellon Dissertation Competition Program and the ACLS Fellowship Program, the organization has seen an increase in applications from persons of color rising from 22% to 30% and from 16% to 22% respectively. The ACLS has also created new initiatives, including supporting research undertaken by faculty at community colleges, where, as President Yu pointed out, the majority of American undergraduates encounter the humanities. It has also initiated a program that embeds researchers in non-academic institutions, bringing humanists to public institutions and foundations. A $5 million grant from the Carnegie Foundation has made possible the continued support of some 400 humanists based in sub-Saharan Africa. The ACLS also received a grant from the Henry Luce Foundation to bring together humanists and media professionals to increase the latter's understanding of and reporting on religion and society. Finally, closer to home, the ACLS organized an important meeting of leaders in its constituent societies to investigate how our associations can support members in a time of sexual harassment and assault. All of these activities are expensive. And just like the Medieval Academy, the ACLS is in the midst of a centennial and has launched a Centennial Capital campaign. The quiet phase has been completed with over half of the $125 million goal having been achieved. As usual at the ACLS meeting, delegates heard from some of our constituent sister organizations. And I invite you to read Patrick Geary's full report of these activities in the July issue of Speculum. Again this year, the delegates heard from John Parrish Peede, chairman of the NEH. Although the president's original budget proposed the abolition of the NEH, Congress actually increased funding by $60,000. He criticized the abandonment of sequential learning in literature and history, asserting that instructors in the humanities get so limited in their focus that they do not transmit foundational knowledge, but rather teach in fragments. Peele also addressed the decline of majors in the liberal arts, which he sees as less significant than how the humanities are taught to those in engineering, science, medicine, and other disciplines, and called for a major effort to integrate arts and humanities into STEM disciplines. Exactly how this might be done while also returning to the teaching of sequential foundational knowledge is left unclear. There followed a series of breakout sessions on learned societies and the Me Too movement, the civic role of learned societies in the age of alternative facts, the challenges and consequences of higher education in the context of globalization, foundational literacies and the opportunities and consequences of interdisciplinarity, and research analytics and the humanities. A plenary session celebrated the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, its program in scholarly communication, and in particular Donald Waters, who was retiring from directing this program. Donald Waters and the Scholarly Communications Program have been particularly important to medievalists across the years. That program has funded major digital initiatives here and abroad, such as e-codices, the Digital St. Gall Plan, the Parker Library on the Web, Romanesque Churches of the Bourbonnais, among others, and has brought together directors of digital projects to share best practice, avoid duplication, and encourage advances in making the material and textual world of the Middle Ages available to all through the internet. Waters will be missed in this position, and one hopes that the Mellon Foundation, in collaboration with the ACLS, will continue to support high-quality humanities research for many years to come. Respectfully submitted, Patrick Geary, delegate to the ACLS. Now I'm going to put my talking as me now. I just want to also say that the fellowship of other executive directors of our sister learned societies has been extraordinarily important in the last few weeks in particular, as we have all come together online with meetings and email lists to discuss the implications of the current COVID outbreak and how it is impacting our organizations and our members. And I look forward to continuing those conversations in the coming months. Thank you. Back to you, Ruth.
Yeah, what Lisa didn't just tell you is that she has actually been asked to present in a webinar to the directors of other learned societies about presenting an online conference and what we have learned from doing this, because we are the first ones. And that's in large part thanks to Lisa's vision and activity. So I want to, normally at this point, the president thanks our hosts, and our hosts were going to be the University of California at Berkeley. And we still need to thank them because most of the work that goes into hosting a conference like this had already happened before the conference was canceled, and various units within the university had been generous with their funding, and certainly the program co-chairs and committee members had been very generous with their time, and we're really grateful for all of this. And I know their disappointment at not being able to actually host us is very strong. This includes not only the members of the program committee, but student volunteers and everyone who is involved with the organization at Berkeley. Our host now, our host in the technological Zoom sense, is Chris Cole from the Medieval Academy, who was largely responsible for setting up the Zoom sessions. And as where the program committee sort of made the arrangements as to what the scheduling of the conference was going to be, Chris actually made it all work technologically. So we're very grateful to him. As we, you know, it's usually Lisa and Cheryl who end up doing most of the work on the conference. And this year, Chris has really come into his own as a major contributor to this as well, although he always has a large part in it. So thank you very much to everyone involved in what didn't happen and also in what did happen. And I hope we've learned a lot from this, and I hope that in the future we don't need to hold a whole conference online, but perhaps we've learned some things that will be useful in thinking of different modes of coming together to meet in the future. I want to thank the outgoing counselors of the MAA who finished their 3 years of service. That is Suzanne Akbari, Michael Bailey, Sarah Lipton, and Therese Martin. It has been a great pleasure to work with all of you. And indeed, I want to thank everyone who worked on all of the Medieval Academies committees during the year that I've been president. I mean, this organization runs on the hard work of its staff, but it also runs on the hard work of volunteers who are also doing full-time jobs elsewhere, and it wouldn't happen without. The next annual meeting, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, will take place on the 15th to the 18th of April 2021 at the University of Indiana in Bloomington. And let us hope that we can all see each other in the flesh there. There are more sessions this afternoon or this evening if you happen to be located where I am. Then the information about these sessions starting at 4 o'clock is available on the conference homepage, so you can go and find the Zoom links there to attend those sessions. Finally, I want to thank all of you who have attended this meeting, as well as those of you who have attended the conference as a whole and have made this a really worthwhile experience for the presenters who have had the opportunity to share their work that the coronavirus has been unable to take from them. Thanks for putting up with some glitches, and for your patience and for your eagerness to participate. And again, we hope that this will be able to happen in the future in person. So thank you all, and this meeting is now adjourned.